Members, we have formed a quorum. I call to order the meeting of the panel on public service. Item 1, information paper issued since the last meeting. No information paper has been issued so far. Item 2, we will now have the Secretary for the Civil Service and her team to come into the room first. Item 2, updating the Civil Service Code. Members who would like to speak, please press the Request to Speak button in front of you now. First, we will now have Mrs. Ingrid Yang, Secretary for the Civil Service, to walk us through the item. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. The Civil Service Bureau, on the 13th of December, has issued the draft Civil Service Code for consultation. Now, I will brief you on the progress. Now, under the leadership of the Chief Executive, the Hong Kong SAR government is dedicated to improving our governance to take Hong Kong forward. Civil servants are the backbone of the government, and their ethics, capability, and efficiency are key to the government's delivery of results. Now, with Hong Kong emerging from chaos to stability to prosperity, the society has ever higher aspiration for the civil service. The Civil Service Bureau is dedicated to improving the management of the civil service, one of which is to enhance the Civil Service Code issued since 2009. There are two objectives. First, to ensure that civil servants understand the constitutional order of the Hong Kong SAR, jointly formed by the Constitution of the PRC and the Basic Law, as well as civil servants' roles and responsibilities under this order. The updated guideline, the updated Civil Service Code, states clearly that the Hong Kong SAR government must accurately and fully implement the one country, two systems principle and uphold the unity between the overall jurisdiction of the Central People's Government and Hong Kong and high autonomy in Hong Kong, and ensure Hong Kong remains competitive internationally. It also states civil servants' role under one country, two systems, including upholding the nation's development interests, territorial integrity, and national security. Civil servants must understand one country, two systems clearly and remain steadfast in upholding national security. The updated Civil Service Code also sets out the national security concept as well as Hong Kong's constitutional role in upholding national security. It is the common obligation of everyone in Hong Kong, civil servants as member of the public as well as a member of the executive branch, is obliged to uphold national security. It is enshrined in the Basic Law as well. Second, respond to people's aspiration and development of society. We will set out a set of core values as well as standards of service, of conduct as guideline for civil servants' behavior. We place constitutional order and national security first because they are the most important core values. The other core values include being people-oriented, passion for public service, dedication to duty, commitment to the rule of law, integrity, political neutrality, professionalism, team spirit, outcome-focused, accountability for performance, and confidentiality. Altogether, 12 core values, which civil servants must have. There are old values as well as new core values. We have also consolidated old core values and standards of conduct and describe them in new terms. Most civil servants have been upholding these core values all along. However, a minority of civil servants had misinterpreted the core values in the past and deviated from the core values. Through reconsolidating core values and standards of conduct into a set of clear and accurate rules, we hope that we can guide civil servants' behavior in their delivery of work. In terms of updating the service code, we have consulted the Public Service Commission as well as meeting representatives from the staff side to explain the draft to them. The consultation work will be conducted in the next 1 month. If you have any views, you can submit your views before the 19th of January 2024, and we will take on board views and amend the draft accordingly. The updated Civil Service Code is an important document which will ensure that the 180,000 strong civil service are aligned in serving Hong Kong and the country. All civil servants, including civil servants on permanent terms as well as non-civil service contract staff, must abide by the Civil Service Code. It is a requirement in their contract. After issuing the official Civil Service Code, we will enhance training and publicity. For example, we will conduct roving exhibition in government buildings and also organize seminars with head of departments. It will also form part of the training program for civil servants of all grades so as to ensure that every civil servant is clear about the Civil Service Code's requirements. Last but not least, if you look at the cover, you may see the sentence, loyalty, dedication, and integrity. It encapsulates the spirit of the civil service. By loyalty, it means that civil servants must be loyal to the chief executive and the government. By dedication, it means that civil servants must be dedicated to ethics and morality and their conviction and serve the public's interest. These are the spirits of the updated Civil Service Code, which must be upheld by every civil servant as their tenants. That concludes my briefing. Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. The floor is now open for members to ask questions. 5 minutes each, including questions and answers. First, Dr. So Chang-Wing. Thank you, Chairman. The Civil Service Code has remained unchanged in the past 15 years. I'm very much in support of this round of updates. There are 2 questions I would like to ask the administration. There is a line in the code saying that head of departments of specific bureaus or departments, if they deem necessary, can take into account their operational needs and lay down guidelines commensurate with the Civil Service Code. Am I right to understand that, premising on the Civil Service Code, head of departments can add their own guidelines as well? If that's the case, would there be different responsibilities imposed on different departments? Am I right to understand that heads of bureaus or departments can impose duties or responsibilities on their own departments? Are you empowering the heads of departments to lay down their own rules and guidelines? If there is a change of head, then what about the consistency of the guideline? Will the new head of department lay down new guidelines in replacement of the old one? Will that affect the solemnity and the consistency of the guidelines? Secretary, thank you, Chairman. I believe you refer to paragraph 8, Dr. So. The sentence also existed in the old version of the code. The Civil Service Code sets down the core values and standards of conduct which must be abided by all civil servants. Different bureaus and departments have different work portfolios. There may be more specific requirements for civil servants in their own department. Say, for example, it is my own experience when I work in the transport department. There was very strict restriction on my personal investments. I could not invest in companies, subsidiaries, or parent companies of public transport services operators. Now, the Civil Service Code is not all-encompassing. It empowers heads of departments and director of bureaus to lay down more specific requirements for their staff. What if there is a change of leadership? Well, very often, more often than not, we see a change of the requirements in time rather than a change in personnel. When an incident exposes a certain problem, the requirements will be changed. For example, in 2011, if I remember correctly, a new requirement was imposed concerning retired civil servants taking outside jobs. The requirement required those job takers to avoid conflicts of interest. The more stringent set of requirements was premised upon a previous incident which exposed areas requiring improvements. A more stringent set of rules was called for, and that enhanced the change. Departments and bureaus, including the Civil Service Bureau, will adjust the requirements laid down for their staff with changes of time. It would not be predicated upon the leaders. However, the requirements may change in time. Dr. So, well, why can't the government itself lay down the specific requirements for each bureau and department based on their own circumstances? That would be a more top-down approach. Well, different departments have very specific work portfolios. It is impossible to lay down all the requirements in a set of civil service code. All the core values and fundamental principles have been set out in the civil service code. Concerning specific requirements laid down by heads of departments and director of bureaus, these are all the extension of the civil service code. Maybe we can view the relations between the two in this way. Thank you. Now, this is the order of members who have pressed the button: Charles Siu Chung, Ronick Chan, Dr. Ngan, Frankie Ngan, Ms. Nixie Lam, Jeffrey Lam, myself, Dennis Leung, and Ms. Carmen Kan. Mr. Charles Siu Chung. Thank you, Chairman. I support the update of the Civil Service Code. In the update, a more comprehensive description and discourse has been laid down for the term political neutrality. That is good. It can prevent deliberate misinterpretation of the term political neutrality by people with ulterior motive as excuses for civil servants to be passive and cause delay in implementation of government's policies, or even use it as a tool or a weapon against the governments. That is good.
Second, there are requirements for the civil servants. They should not be staying in a rut. They should leave the comfort zone and serve the members of the public with innovative ideas. Now, all these are good because this will motivate the civil servants to higher levels. And we can also tell a good story of the civil servants that way. I am concerned, however, that this new code would have some impact on the union work, that they are okay to seek better deals for the civil servants, according to the Secretary. But Para 43 of the consultation paper says that civil servants will have to support government policies and they cannot raise an objection. Now, every year, the unions will be seeking higher pay for the civil servants. If the government has decided on a rate of increase, if the unions do not subscribe to the idea, and if the union members do not subscribe to this idea, and if they make a statement contrary to the government's proposed rate, would that amount to an objection to government policy? Second, Para 44 says that we should not express an opinions which will associate such views with their official capacity. The union leaders may get reported by the media and they will be introduced as some of the leaders of the unions in the media, and they will be named as such in the media report. Does it mean that when the union leaders are expressing their views in the social media, will that amount to any conflict with the government's position? And Para 53 regarding political neutrality. Civil servants cannot directly or indirectly organize any activity that impedes policy implementation. Under the trade union ordinance, the unions do have the authority to organize certain activities. For instance, if the unions do not agree with the rate of pay rise, they may organize certain petition or rallies or even industrial action or strikes. This is the power conferred upon the unions under the trade unions ordinance. Would that be in conflict with Para 53 of the paragraph? How do you think we should, where should we stand there? Secretary. As Mr. Chow said, I did make the clarification in the media. The union activities, as long as they work in accordance with the purpose of having the union, if they seek to fight for a better deal in terms of pay and benefits, this will not be bound by the code. And that's precisely the purpose of the unions. In the process, this, in terms of pay and benefits, they would adopt a kind of view that would be different from the administration. And this is only natural. And Mr. Chow asked about certain activities that are organized in opposition. As long as they are doing things that are part of the trade unions ordinance, and if they are proportionate, and if they are doing this in a way that is acceptable by the members of the public, then the Civil Service Code will not have any impact on them. As to the union leaders, I'm sure Mr. Chow is talking about non-core business of the unions, and not so much the pay and conditions of service. If the union leaders are expressing their views in these other areas, I hope that they will be bound by the code in a way that their views will not be associated with the views in their official capacity. And this would really affect people's views about the impartiality of the civil servants. I agree that for the union leaders, it is hard for them to get rid of their capacity as the union leaders. If they are expressing any views other than the unions, they have to tread carefully, because it is likely that someone might associate their views with the views of the union members. I'm sure that they will certainly be cautious when they're expressing their views. If they are expressing views and they're not consistent with the union members, I don't think they should not do so in a way that would render it being associated with the official views. Mr. Ronald Chen, the government, being the largest employer, is moving on with times and amend the code. And there is detailed explanation about the political neutrality. That this is the point I'd like to bring up. Mr. Chao Shu-chong has highlighted some specific activities. Now here, the civil servants can not or should never directly or indirectly organize or participate in any activity that impedes policy implementation. Can you, Madam Secretary, cite more examples to assuage our concerns? Second, civil servants are often criticized for acting in accordance with the rules. Now, the civil service, according to the code, have to be full of passion. They should adopt a can-do spirit. How can you motivate and train the civil servants to be sufficiently innovative with a view to achieving breakthrough? Now, this is something that most people would like to see happen in the civil service. And Para 61 says that civil servants will have to be kept abreast of the latest information. There should be a joined-up service. It should not be a silo kind of operation. This is the drawback of the civil service. If they have the team spirit in the private sector, they tend to have the team-building programs. Is the administration's intention to introduce more of these team-building programs for the civil servants, for them to achieve a team spirit there? Secretary? Right. Thanks very much, Mr. Chen. This gives me the opportunity to clarify the meaning of activity that impedes the policy implementation. Now, for these kind of activities, they tend to be more extreme. If people are expressing their views in a rational manner, that would not be construed as impeding policy implementation. I don't really want to cite any examples, because there are many different ways of doing it, and there are many ways that might impede the policy implementation. Now, if certain statutory procedures cannot proceed, then we cannot move on to the next step. I think I must clarify here that in the virtual world, in the cyberspace, anything that is done is also a kind of action. That people may be expressing their views online, or they may be calling for certain acts to be undertaken, it would also achieve a pretty widespread effect. So it may not be any physical act. In the cyber world, things are really no different from what you are acting in the physical world. Now, there are so many examples there. The second question, innovative, achieving breakthrough, how can we make sure that civil service will be imbued with this kind of spirit? In our training, we do set quick store by this. In the day-to-day work, in our appraisal reports, there are many ways that would attach importance to innovation, whether someone has an innovative mindset. There is this column on which the colleague will be assessed, and I hope that the senior officials will be really take this seriously instead of being too liberal. And through this, I hope that we will be able to examine their service and see whether this is sufficiently innovative. And not just innovative, we have to make sure that there will be value added to the service. And the time and effort put in would yield better results. And team spirit, will there be any team building work? Team building work is something that we have been doing. The Civil Service College has been organizing programs with the different departments, and there are bespoke programs that are organized for specific departments depending on their specific needs. So the Civil Service College has been doing this all along. Also, in our day-to-day work, we can have a pretty good team building, like the voluntary work in the district council election. We have dispatched the volunteer teams to do a lot of work there, and this is also part of the team building exercise. We are encouraging the departments to do more of this. And indeed, the departments do have the consciousness, the awareness to do more of this. Mr. Frankie An, Chairman, I've got 3 questions. In the code, it talks about the appraisal or the KPI. The Secretary said that it would be hard to quantify the APIs. The civil servants do have the accountability there. Now, if the KPIs cannot be quantified, how can we make sure that there will be sufficient accountability? Will the head of grade or departments be telling them specifically? And also, Para 55 says that the civil servants taking part in the private participation in political party activities should not cause an embarrassment to the government. Is it embarrassment to the government, or is it embarrassment to the secretary, or is it embarrassment to the civil servants, or is it embarrassment to the civil servants themselves? Now, this consultation will take us until the 19th of January. How soon will this revised version be put into effect? Secretary. Right, first about the KPIs. Indeed, a lot of the work cannot be governed by a quantifiable KPI, but in fact, the department heads or the senior grades, in terms of their achievements, would have a pretty good idea in mind, because otherwise they're not really good enough to be the senior officers. Things may change. There may be difficulties that may be thrown up in the course of implementation, and things may have to change, and the progress might be affected. But I'm sure the senior officers would have some clear idea, some yardstick to measure the junior officers by. And they must have some ideas about the level of achievement that one must have. Now, you may say that some seniors are more stringent, some are more liberal. Indeed, at any given time, given a certain seniority, the officer must measure up to a certain level. And through this senior management, we should be able to tell whether an officer is really achieving a level which is commensurate with the level that he is expected to achieve. And in the appraisal report, in terms of promotion, these will be reflected. And this is something that will happen.
It isn't something that we are just doing now. All along, the immediate supervisor or the head of department have adopted a candid approach to assess the performance of the colleague rather than being too lenient. We are promoting this culture so that it can take roots in the civil service. Paragraph 55. Causing embarrassment to the government by participating in political party activities, or embarrassment to whom, or what kind of embarrassment? Well, it should be obvious to the eyes of the ordinary public. The actions of the civil servants is clearly in breach of the political neutrality requirements under the Civil Service Code, thus causing embarrassment to the government. It shouldn't be controversial. It should be obvious to the ordinary eyes. Now, in terms of when we can finalize the Civil Service Code and issue the final draft, well, it depends on the views submitted to us. I'm pleased to see that most of the views we received are in support of the update. Having consulted the panel, if there are no in-principle objection to the draft, I don't think a major amendment would be required, and we can release the final draft soon. Now, what about the KPI? When can you give us the final version of the Civil Service Code? It seems that you can't quantify the KPI. Will it be within this term of government before we see the final version? Well, the Secretary said that would be done as soon as possible. Anything to add, Secretary? It really depends on the views received. I can definitely say that it will be completed before the end of this term of government. I certainly hope that it will be sooner than a year. But that's a big if. If there is not much controversies and we are only focusing on a certain term, we will be able to complete it very soon. Dr. Frank Yan, you can rest assured. The original agenda today did not include the update of the Civil Service Code. Mrs. Ingrid Young moved this agenda item to today when the draft was available, so it shows that the government is very committed. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Thank you, Chairman. The old version of the Civil Service Code has been in use for more than a decade. Now we have patriots administering Hong Kong, and we are moving from stability to prosperity. The Civil Service Code should also move ahead. Well, like playing a football game, I watched the Premier League last night. There are lots of new things they are doing. For example, there is the VAR. When the referee made the wrong decision, the decision can be rectified. Even if a red card has been presented, that can be reverted. Or by the same token, the VAR is just the same as CCTV. Many people in Hong Kong objects to the idea of installation of CCTV because that would undermine privacy. Well, but the experience in Premier League shows that video record can rectify wrongs. Well, I'm not saying that we have to install CCTV everywhere, but if you are law-abiding, you have nothing to afraid of. Well, and also for rules about substitution, and at the time, the rules have changed a lot in the Premier League. Political neutrality has been something on the discussion table for a long time. Now, under the new code, civil servants must have total loyalty to the sea and the government. Well, that's righting wrong. And also, we must prevent people misusing the term political neutrality to delay implementation of policy. Well, I think that's good. And I'm also happy to see that the new Civil Service Code requires civil servants to look beyond rules and focus on delivering results. Well, I'm pleased to see that. I'm pleased to see that civil servants will be required to be innovative in delivering the outcomes. So what are the criteria in assessing civil servants' performance? For high achievers, would there be any reward? Well, we are always talking about a performance-based appraisal system. So can you give us the detail of this mechanism, Secretary? Now, the 12 core values and the standards of conduct can be categorized into two areas. One is in relation to personal conduct and ethics. When a colleague has misconducted himself, by which I mean specific actions in breach of the code. For these misconducts, we would deal with the colleague in accordance with our disciplinary mechanism and impose a commensurate penalty or punishment on him. The other group is in relation to work attitude, for example, team spirits, willingness to innovate and go beyond one's comfort zones, and so on. These will be reflected on his work. Our existing appraisals have already covered these areas, including team spirit, how does one fit into the team, the innovative capability, and under the core value of professionalism, there is ability to analyze, be impartial, comprehensive, and so on. These are concrete values which can be appraised. We have 6 grades in our appraisal system, and there are clear descriptions on how one can attain a certain grade. This is also clear to the appraisee. He or she will know the level of performance behind a certain grade. And of course, the superiors understand clearly when a certain grade can be awarded. So for a poor performer, the grade would be low, and it would affect promotion prospects, attachments to posts, or even increments of salary points. For worst cases, we would initiate retirements in accordance with the mechanism. So this is how we will deal with poor performers. Now for high achievers or overachievers, now for personal ethics and conducts, of course, it would be commendable to have the highest standard possible. In terms of work performance, it would be reflected in terms of promotion, commandments, and award. Thank you, Ms. Nixie Lam. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Secretary. This update has been a long time coming. As a representative of the DAB, I have been approached by the media as well, and I have told them I'm happy with the update. The amendments are not very controversial, and I don't expect a lot of opposition to the change. Now, there are very clear discourse in terms of civil servants' role under one country, two systems. I think that is very important. Since returning to the motherland, it hasn't been made clear, and that gave rise to a lot of misunderstanding. Many people are confused about their roles. Some civil servants think they are just doing a job and they neglected their obligations and responsibilities. So I welcome the clear definition. In terms of political neutrality, there's always been a worry that some people will use political neutrality as a shield and an excuse to be passive in their work. So I welcome the change as well. I have a question about the core value, professionalism, paragraphs 59 and 60. It says if you have contrary views, you can put it up for internal discussion. Paragraph 60, the decision, the final call, would be made by principal officials. Now, some colleagues also ask about online comments and discussion. Say a senior official has access to some information, and in the end, the superior did not take on board his suggestions, and then he told his grievances to his friends or even created a post online about that. So how will that colleague be dealt with? Well, it may be a small thing, but it may have a snowballing effect. So how should that be defined? According to the Civil Service Code, the civil servant must put forward his views boldly in goodwill. So if that is not accepted, he may feel entitled to voice his grievance. Now, I think the Civil Service Code is well drafted, but I think it is very, very mild. I see my colleagues laughing. Well, maybe it is because of your feminine touch, Mrs. Ingrid Yang. That's why it's so mild. Well, I have some examples from other jurisdictions. Say, for example, the Federation Civil Service Code in Germany. It is very clear-cut. Civil servants are not allowed to engage in any political activities in relation to freedom and against of freedom, democracy, and so on. And no activities can be they cannot be involved in any activities which affect the standing of the government. In contrary, our code seems to be very mildly worded. So how can we address the gray areas? Secretary. Now, for putting up professional views for internal discussion, that's totally fine. However, if you are voicing your comments in a public setting, in whatever capacity, you have to be very careful. Views put forward by colleagues internally, what has been accepted and what has not been accepted, these are usually confidential matters. Not just the information itself, the internal discussion itself is regarded confidential. So under the tenets of political neutrality, dedication, and also confidentiality, one must be aware whether these rules have been breached. If it is a very private setting, and you are sure that it would not be leaked into the public realm, you may have more freedom to express your views. However, in the world today, even if you think it is a comment made in a private setting which will not enter the public domain, well, the outcome may be very different. So I can't give you a clear-cut guidance. You can say it if it is a friend you have known for 30 years. You can't say that to someone you have known for just 15 years. Well, I can't say that. But you have to be very careful if it is in relation to your work. If it is in relation to broader policies, if you are voicing your comments in private capacity, you have to pay attention to paragraph 14 as well. And
second, whether this is mildly worded or temperate, we have struck a balance there. We use should not, must not, and words like this. If there are areas members would like to see us make things clearer, we will certainly consider them. Ms. Nixie-Lam, well, the two questions go hand in hand. I think in some cases they shall not do certain things like discussing with friends even. If you are really expressing your grievances about a certain immature policies, you have entered into the non-disclosure agreement, you do have the confidentiality clause there. I mean, in the private sector, if you divulge this to your mother, to your spouse, then it's a no thing to do. Why can't the administration do the same things? I mean, it's not good enough for someone to talk to a friend about it. Secretary, other than the 12 points, paragraph 78, we've also referred to this. The information that they get from the civil service, they are not supposed to disclose it. So not just the advice tendered to the principal official, the advice they tendered to the senior officials, it should also be kept confidential. Ms. Nixie-Lam has got a point there. We do have the confidentiality requirement that one has to observe. I thank Ms. Lam for her comments. We'll certainly consider how best we can get the message across. Thanks very much. It's my turn now, Secretary. Many colleagues said that this amendment is an exercise that moves on with the times. The last revision was in 2009. The situation post reunification has been pretty difficult, and it was not easy to move any amendments because people might play things out of all proportion. Now we are transitioning from stability to prosperity. It is a high time we revised the code. That the revised code has contain a lot more information about our positioning, our understanding of the nation, and so on. And for the core values, there are 12 instead of 6. So for the first two, people-oriented and upholding the constitutional order and national security, I think this will enrich the civil servants' understanding of the situation. It would put things much clearer because they are there for the people. They should be people-oriented. I think that would give a better understanding to the civil servants. and the public at large. There are so many things that the civil servants will have to bear in mind. Now, Para 66 refers to anticipatory governance, and civil servants need to be future ready and aware of the challenges ahead. Now, because of the geopolitics, we certainly do have to have a sense of crisis. We have to be aware of the difficult, the challenging situation. And we should pursue stability and we should pursue development in this context. So what can be done for us to achieve this objective of anticipatory governance? Second, political neutrality was misunderstood before, and this amendment has really put things right. When it comes to actual implementation, how can we make sure that the civil servants themselves would fully understand this new interpretation? And you may say that they can read the document themselves, but I think it would be better if there is some briefing arranged for them. How are you going to achieve this? Secretary, on your first point, Mr. Chairman, how can we make sure that the civil servants will have the awareness to anticipate crisis in good times? Now, this is something that has to be done in training, and we will be enriching the content of our training for senior and middle-ranking civil servants, and they have to be kept abreast of the international landscape, the threat of the threat to national security. They should have a global outlook. We do a lot of this in our training each year. Now, for 2 years now, we are really grateful to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for arranging certain talks about the foreign affairs of the nation. Second, technology is moving ahead by leaps and bounds, and there are so many possibilities open up. There are so many challenges arising from that as well, and we will be doing more training, not just for those who are tech savvy. For the rest of the civil servants, they also have to get to grips with the opportunities opened up by the technology, and also the risks and danger associated with it, so that the civil servants will achieve anticipatory governance and be future ready and aware of the challenges ahead, and make sure Hong Kong will do better and the nation will do better. Civil servants will need to understand all the core values and standards of conduct, and also the constitutional responsibilities and duties. Now, in terms of his constitutional duties and responsibilities, we put a lot of emphasis on this for new recruits. This is something that will be emphasized in the induction course. For serving civil servants, we'll also will add this kind of element into the training. Now, in terms of constitutional order, the basic law, the Constitution, we do offer training in this regard. This year, for instance, we have the training course in connection with One Country, Two Systems and Contemporary China. And departments are sending representatives to attend these courses. We also welcome other colleagues to attend these courses online. And all these training will be conducted on a regular basis. As I said at the very beginning in my opening remarks, we do have the examiners with department heads. We'll also ask the department heads to do more explanation, to brief the colleagues when they go back to their departments. Going forward, if there are new ideas, they can achieve the publicity and education effect, we'll certainly be happy to do it. Mr. Dennis Low. By way of declaration, my family member is a civil servant. I read the revised code, and some of the headings are kept on. While there are some new headings like upholding the constitutional order, national security, people-oriented, passion for public service, dedication to duty, and dedicated to duty, it has been simplified, and there are certain titles that have been done away with. Impartiality, objectivity, they have also gone. But political neutrality is kept on here. I've got some comments to make here. Now, political neutrality has been used before and after the reunification, and this is subject to misinterpretation. Why don't you adopt a better terminology to avoid a situation that this term might give rise to dispute, like political correctness and so on? When they read the code, they may feel that things are pretty much the same as before and there is no change. I hope the CSB will reconsider this and hear more views from the consultation. Basically, this amendment will enhance the loyalty of the civil servants. This will provide a safe and secure environment to attract new blood to the rank of the civil service to work for Hong Kong and the nation. The only comment I have is on the political neutrality. I hope that this can be revisited. Secretary? Well, whether we adopt the wording political neutrality, we have had some considerations. In the text, paragraph 50 through to 57, we are using a broader term. Now, we would consider avoiding the use of political neutrality to avoid misinterpretation. But if we don't adopt this term, it may likewise give rise to some association or some interpretation. So we're still keeping this political neutrality. However, we make this sufficiently clear, and there will also be publicity and education. And I'm sure that this will achieve our objective that the civil service would have a clear understanding. That this has been published for about 5 days, and this has received a widespread report in the media on the question of political neutrality. And there will also be a briefing to be conducted. I'm sure that this will be sufficiently clear.
Any follow-up question? Yes, I do. In the civil service, we have ordinary civil servants and political appointees. They are one team, serving in unity. However, in terms of the collaboration between the permanent secretary of a department, of a bureau, and the political appointee, I hope there will be clearer guidelines on how the collaboration can be strengthened so that policies can be implemented more smoothly and effectively. this will benefit the services for the people and also improve the implementation of policies in the community. Thank you. Well, there is a change. Well, I won't say major change, but there is an obvious change compared with the old version. That is, we have streamlined the session on relations between the civil servants and the political appointees. The reason for that is the system has been running smoothly for more than a decade, and the civil service and the political appointees are clear about their division of labor as well as how to deal with conflicting views. We want to move ahead with time. So for the part where things have been running so smoothly, we want to streamline the session in relation to that. Besides the Civil Service Code, there is also a set of guidelines and code of conduct for political appointees, stipulating clearly the duties and obligations of political appointees. Well, that's not a public document, but the document has stipulated those requirements clearly. So that's why we want to streamline the part in the code. Ms. Carmen Can. Thank you, Chairman. Concerning the management of civil service, the Chief Executive has subsumed this task under improvement of governance for two consecutive policy addresses. The goal is to attract more talents into the civil service as well as improving the effectiveness of the service. Now, I think this is a good move to update the Civil Service Code since it has already been used for 15 years. We can clearly see the Chief Executive's dedication to adopt a performance-based management system and attract more talents into the team. Now, when there were calls for removing the term political neutrality, I already raised the point that it is not as simple as removing the term. We have to spell out what does it mean by being loyal to the chief executive and the government and the country. It is not as simple as taking away the term. Now we have the clear requirements or the clear principle of upholding one country, two systems, which is a good system, which must be adhered to in the long term. And also we are now requiring civil servants to have a macro view on things. Now, in terms of oath and declaration, we are just repeating what have been required under the oaths and declaration in the Civil Service Code rather than inventing new things. So I welcome the administration's taking on board my suggestions. Now, in paragraph 50, it is said that political neutrality on the part of civil servants is premised on their being loyal to the country and the HKSAR. So I think that will work because we know what the premise is. And also it is spelled out clearly that all civil servants must serve the CE and the governments of the day with total loyalty. And there are now 12 core values and everything has been spelled out clearly. That's all very well. In terms of political neutrality, I have some suggestions in relation to 53, paragraph 53. It says, in any event, civil servants should never, directly or indirectly, organize or participate in any activity that impedes policy implementation by the Hong Kong SAR government. Well, I think the English version is even more clear than the Chinese version because it says, in any event, and directly or indirectly, a civil servant should never organize or participate in any activity that impedes policy implementation. Now, if you read it in context with 51, by impediments, you don't know whether it is an actual impediment or perceived or possible impediment. So I want you to spell it out even more clearly. It doesn't just mean actual impediments. Even a perceived one is a breach of the rule. And also, in participating political party activities, civil servants can attend them in private capacity. Well, I hope you can stipulate clearly that the activities will not compromise and may not reasonably be seen to compromise their impartiality in their official capacity or cause any embarrassment to the government. Well, not just political party activities, any political activities should come with this requirement as well. So that's my suggestion. Secretary. Chair. Ms. Carmen Can's interpretation is generally correct. Civil servants should never organize or participate in any activity that impedes policy implementation of the government. By impediments, it doesn't mean that an actual impediment has been caused. Even a perceived impediment is a bridge. Now, in terms of causing embarrassment to the government, yes, I agree that political activities causing embarrassment to the government should also be banned. So I will consider amending the term. It is also important to spell out clearly the relationship between civil servants and political appointees. Well, I wonder in drafting this section whether you have consulted the views of the political appointees in the government. Now, I understand that in the previous version, the political appointment system has been only in running for a few years. That's why a longer chapter was required. Now, in the new version, it is also very clear that civil servants may give their views even if political appointees have the final say in matters. In paragraph 75, it says that civil servants should give their views in good view on the possible consequences of policies. So this is a culture of mutual trust, and it is desirable. Paragraph 74, civil servants, in particular senior civil servants, have to attend Executive Council, Legislative Council meetings with the political appointees, or even explain proposed policy initiatives to the community, the stakeholders, political parties, and media, and so on. So I hope that in the future, senior civil servants will be dedicated to assist political appointees in governing Hong Kong. Thank you. Next, Ms. Elizabeth Quartz. Thank you. I support the update of the code. The fact is, in recent times, many members of the public are concerned about the political stances held by the civil servants. We all agree that our civil service is of a high caliber. Still, updating the civil service code is an important step towards consolidating the core values of the service. So I support that. And I agree with the move to spelling out the term political neutrality more clearly so that it will not be used as a shield for civil servants to delay implementation of government's policies or not supporting the government. Now, some people ask me after watching the news, they heard the secretary saying that for a breach of the code, the person in question may have a retirement initiated upon them. So what is the difference of a management-initiated retirement and termination of contract? Now, I have also written an article on other examples of civil service code in other countries. So can we be more stringent? For example, in the UK, for civil servants violating laws in relation to national security, besides a criminal liability, he would also lose the pension. Now, in Canada, for civil servants opposing the government openly, they would be fired. In Australia, civil servants are required to uphold the reputation of the country. So these are very specific requirements. Those in breach may face termination of contracts, a reduction of salary, or a change of postings. Now, in 2017, the Australian government issued a guideline on civil servants' conduct in the public domain. Their behaviors online are monitored, and they are not allowed to openly criticize the government online. So I believe in drafting this code, you have made reference to other countries' examples. So what about the punishment? Some people may think that a mandatory retirement is too lenient. They can still enjoy pension. They can criticize the government and then get retired and still enjoy pension. Civil servants who have retired and are on pension can criticize the government however they want, so that's not fair. Secretary, for those who have violated our core values and standards of conduct, well, as I said, there are two categories. One is in relation to individuals' conduct and ethics. For example, adhering to the rule of law, integrity, and political neutrality. For substantiated breaches of these core values, well, the actions itself is subject to punishment under the disciplinary mechanism. And we would consider whether it is a clear and blatant violation of the core values in the code. That would be taken into consideration in meting out punishment. For rules which are stipulated clearly in the code, if there is a breach, it would exacerbate the offense. Now, for violations of discipline, the punishment ranges from verbal warning to termination of employment. And one rung below that is mandatory retirement. For the most serious case, that is termination of employment, the colleague would lose his retirement benefits as well. For mandatory retirement, there is still a benefit. Now, the other group of core values is in relation to work attitude, including professionalism and team spirit. For those who have violated these values, it must be reflected in his appraisal. So that would fall into the mechanism to deal with persistent poor performers. For the worst cases, they would be asked to retire as well. For other cases, which are just poor performers, well, since retirement benefits are a token of recognition to past contribution, then we have to be fair. I think the unions would agree with me as well. We have to accord these poor performers with the relevant benefits as well. So for worst cases, there would be termination of employment or mandatory retirement. Termination of employment is the harshest punishment, which will deprive the offender with the retirement benefits as well. Now, for for acts in breach of national security law, the person would lose his position immediately, and we would deal with it with full force.
Ms. Quat, for those who have already retired, what was going to happen to them? Yes, for the retiree civil servants, they're no longer civil servants. They're not bound by the Civil Service Code. But after retirement, if they seek outside work, we do have a specific mechanism there. For the old system, those joining before June 2000, they would be governed by the pensions ordinance, which is governing the disbursement of pension. And there can be a scenario where the pension can be docked or suspended, like a breach of NSL or the ordinance or the offences under the Prevention of Bribery Ordinance, or a breach in an official capacity which would undermine the trust in the civil service. Now, under these three scenarios, the pension can be docked, suspended, or terminated. Ms. Quat, there are some complaints that some retired civil servants they are taking government pension, but they're very critical of the government, making the government really embarrassed. Are you going to be adding certain provisions to stop the retired civil servants engaging in acts that are really extraordinary and outrageous? Secretary, we have hundreds of thousands of civil servants or retired civil servants. The requirements are very stringent to start with. Any amendments would be very sensitive to the retired civil servants. So we have to be very cautious in what we do there. For the time being, we don't have any intention of amending that piece of legislation. The vast majority of the retired civil servants are abiding by the guidelines that they have been abiding by as civil servants. Mr. Tony J., the updating of the 2009 Civil Servants Code, I support that. The sooner this is happening, the better. Now, there are 12 core values instead of 6. The public would be more concerned about political neutrality and also dedication to duty. This is also dear to my heart as well. Political neutrality. There were some suggestions that this be done away with, and now you are putting things beyond doubt so that civil servants would have better understanding and they will not do things that they're not supposed to do and be held accountable. Para 43 of the paper now for civil servants, they are giving their views regarding the formulation of policies. Now, there is a fine line sometimes between making comments or making criticisms. Now, in para 43, it says that if they have any comments or criticisms, they're not supposed to air them in public. Internally, there are many channels for them to air their views. Will the Secretary be putting this beyond doubt for clarification? Because this might serve to silence people. Second, about the KPIs. about the there are certain policies for which the implementation and execution would be really absolutely crucial. Sometimes you may have the best of intention, but when it comes to implementation, it is not really implemented vigorously enough. And I hope that the civil servants should be more committed. Like the chief executive said, we should be result oriented, and people will be able to see the result there. So the change of culture there might take a bit of time. In my constituency, there are many ideas that are really brilliant, but when it comes to the execution, there are so many procedures, and we're not really achieving the desired effect. Say, for instance, we make an application, and the officials will be abiding by the prescribed time frame, and you don't get the reply until the last day. Like in a plan, particular coloring is not right. I mean, we normally don't get notified until the very last day of the prescribed time frame, and the officials may be acting in straight accordance with the rules and procedures. As the chief executive said, we have to raise the speed and efficiency. I think something must be done about it. Secretary. Well, when civil servants express their views, it all depends on the capacity. Paragraph 43 makes it very clear that in their capacity as civil servants, they cannot criticize any government policies or support opposing views of any other party, but in their private capacity, they will have to follow paragraph 44. They should avoid their views being mistaken as government's official position, or the activities are condoned or supported by the government, nor should they cause the community to associate such views or activities with their official capacity as civil servants, or to cast doubt on their impartiality. So when they are acting in the private capacity, we're not saying that civil servants are not supposed to say anything at all, but if they express their views in the private capacity, they should have to observe these rules. Now, of course, objectively, whether views are expressed in a temperate and rational manner, or is it really strident criticism, I'm sure that the public would have their own idea. Internally, this is made very clear. Internally, the civil servants should be willing to come forward with their views. Of course, these views have to be professional, but they should be willing to express their views, although they do not exactly be in line with the seniors' views. Now, as to the procedures, that doesn't matter how many procedures there are. We have to make sure that the result would be more important, because the public would judge whether the government policies are a good one on the basis of the outcome. Mr. J cited the example. I do remember this. The procedures are important because with procedures, we will make sure that the public resources will not be abused, and in the course of decision making, there will not be any abuses. But the key thing is the procedures should be kept under review on a regular basis to make sure that the procedures can be streamlined in accordance with the prevailing circumstances. And what's more important is that in dealing with the issues, if there are exceptions to the rules, there can be a discretionary action that can deal with the issues more expeditiously. Now, we do have training to impart this kind of knowledge. Now, as far as the CSB is concerned, in September, we announced the mechanism regarding the underperformers. We have indeed reviewed the procedures by streamlining them. This practice will continue. In our messages to the department heads or the senior staff, we will certainly enhance this particular message. Mr. Kingsley Wong, Chairman, I support the revised civil service code because this is in line with the prevailing circumstances. We have made clear the constitutional order in paragraph 15. It refers to the fact that Hong Kong has been reintegrated into China's governance system, and also we have to have the patriots in the team. In paragraph 17, we have to make sure that there will be political security. Now, all these guidelines are really well written. I've got two questions there, though. In revising the Civil Service Code, will you make sure that political security and will have to be safeguarded? Now, earlier we became aware that Director of Broadcasting had the foreign passport. That those in the governing team must be patriotic, and we have to have political security. And if department heads can have a foreign passport, is it really an anachronistic approach? And are there any examples in overseas countries that that department heads are not supposed to hold a foreign passport? And if they breach these, what sort of rule would they be in breach of? Civil servants are serving Hong Kong and the nation, and they should serve with honor. And I've seen some vehicle license plate. Some of the vehicles are not fitted with AM license plate. How many vehicles have not been refitted with AM plate? Now, that's because of the security during the black violence. Now we are moving on from stability to prosperity. Now, how are you going to refit the government vehicle fleet with AM plates? Yes, the nationality requirement for senior civil servants, Article 99 of the Basic Law, it provides that Hong Kong permanent residents can become civil servants, and Article 99 doesn't specify any nationality requirements. So there are no nationality requirements for the civil servants, and that's in line with the Basic Law, and we are sure that the Basic Law was enacted and promulgated through a very rigorous process, so we don't have an intention of changing that. But for principal officials, there is a requirement regarding the nationality, and the basic law has struck a balance in terms of political security. And in fact, civil servants serving and new recruits that they have to swear an oath or they have to make a declaration. And when they rise to the department head level, they will have to swear an oath again, and there's a solemn pledge. And so in supporting and upholding the basic law and the constitutional order, we're not unduly concerned that there will be any breaches. In terms of national security, the national security law, as I said earlier on, does provide for a very stringent penalty. If there are any breaches, one would lose the public office. So that would also safeguard national security. So in terms of nationality for the civil servants, we don't have any intention of making any changes.
公務車輛方面咧，
In terms of vehicle for official uses, there are many considerations behind not using an AM license plate. Some senior government officials would like to avoid causing undue attention to them when they go about. That's why they use another license plate. I mean, vehicles with license plates are not including AM. However, for official visits, many colleagues are using AM license plated vehicles already. Now, in attending important public events, I think principal officials and political appointees must bear a sense of pride in attending these events. This will also exude a sort of confidence to the public. So would there be a requirement for political appointees or government officials to use a vehicle with an AM license plate when they attend public events? Secretary, I think Mr. Kingsley Wong is asking about the decision to be made, whether it is up to the political appointee itself or the department. Well, both. It depends on operational needs. Well, there may be numerous trips in a day's schedule. So it may be challenging to change the license plates or change the vehicle. And there are also consideration of not causing unnecessary attention. Well, we will reflect Mr. Kingsley Wong's views to the relevant departments. However, when attending important public events in an official capacity, the presence of the principal official itself sends a clear message that it is a high-profile attendance by a public figure. So it's not like they want to keep their work secret. Thank you. For the interest of time, we will stop here. Second round, there are two colleagues so far. I will draw a line here. Second round, 2 minutes each. Mr. Chow Siu-chung and Mr. Dennis Leung. Mr. Chow Siu-chung, please. Thank you, Chairman. In answering my first question, the Secretary said that some representatives of the Civil Servants General Union were very careful in responding to government's inquiries. Well, I believe that many civil servants are union members and they need to voice their views on many platforms. Now, for example, for Labour Advisory Board's member, we do have representatives from the Civil Servants General Union to represent ourselves in the Labor Advisory Board, and their views may be at odds with the management side, and they have held press conferences to criticize the decision of the government and also organize strike. So for policy matters unrelated to the welfare of civil servants in terms of remuneration and so on, will the general union be allowed to voice their views anymore? Now, during the 1-month-long consultation period, I hope the government would listen to the union as well, not just the 4 largest civil servants unions. I hope you will listen to smaller civil servants unions as well to gauge their views. Secretary, Chairman, we will consult the entire civil service, so not just the 4 bigger and the 4 smaller civil servants unions. We have approached the 4 central consultative councils and the 4 unions. We have invited the representatives from these organizations to disseminate the message for us, but the consultation itself is targeted at the entire civil service. There are numerous civil servants unions, hundreds of them in different bureaus and departments. So I welcome their views as well. Now, you mentioned Labor Advisory Board. That is an advisory board established by the government. The appointment to the board follows a set of statutory procedures, and the members are elected members. The government respects this mechanism. Whether they are outside members or serving civil servants members, views put forward in relation to labor matters in the established setting would not be deemed as comments made against the government, because the government would rely on these views as well. The government would consult the Labor Advisory Board on matters that it seeks views on. So that would not fall into the requirements under paragraphs 43 and 44. Thank you. Mr. Dennis Leung is not here. He is attending another meeting next door. So that concludes this item. Thank you. Moving on to the next item. Commendation and award schemes for civil servants. Members who would like to speak may press the button now. Now we will now invite the Secretary to walk us through the paper. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. As I've mentioned many times, the civil service is the backbone of the government. Its capability and efficiency is the key to good quality government services. We have been encouraging performance enhancement of civil servants and dedication to serve the public by various commendation schemes. The 2023 policy address sets out a number of measures for that purpose, including promoting the performance-based management system and continue implementation of various commendation schemes for civil servants to give due recognition to civil servants with outstanding performances and dedication to serving the community. We will also step up our efforts to publicize good stories of civil servants to showcase their achievements and dedication to serving the community. This will boost morale and work efficacy and attract talents to join the team. Now, the government has launched the Chief Executive's Award for Exemplary Performance in the second quarter of 2023 to give recognition to exemplary teams or individuals on a regular basis. The first awardee team was the Hong Kong SAR Search and Rescue Team to Turkey. A ceremony was held to award the awardees, and then we publicized the good stories through various online platforms and civil service newsletter. Now, the Secretary for the Civil Services Commendation Award Scheme has a target number of recipients of 100 per annum. The nominations are made by permanent secretaries of or head of departments or grades. Recipients of awards must have 5 consecutive years of exemplary performances. In 2023, 100 civil servants from 38 bureaus and departments were commended, covering 50 different grades. The award ceremony was held in November. We have selected the stories of 10 awardees and compiled short videos to showcase them on RTHK Channel 31. Later on, these videos will also be played in media platforms of public transport, and the government venues. Long and Meritorious Service Travel Award Scheme seeks to award colleagues with a track record of consistently very good performance to encourage innovation and allow sharing of good practices. This is held every 3 years. In year 2022, 32 bureaus have 55 civil servants being awarded. We have compiled video clips to be shown in online platform as well as our website. This is the Civil Service Outstanding Service Award Scheme. We have also conducted seminars to allow awardees to share their experience. These have also been made into training materials. Now, the new round of the Civil Service Outstanding Service Award Scheme will be held in 2025. And also, through the Long and Meritorious Service Travel Award Scheme, we award local non-directorate officers with a continuous service of 20 years or more and a track record of consistently very good performance. In year 2023-24 financial year, the award amount is $27,470 per person, with a quota of some 1,900 persons. Now, also, heads of departments would commend colleagues with persistent good performance, as well as those making significant contribution to society through the Commendation Letter Scheme. And there is also the honors and award system, which applies to the general public as well. We will continue to support our civil servants by offering them quality training and enhance their dedication to serve the public. In the following, we will be pleased to answer members' questions. Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. 5 minutes for members. Mr. Charles Siu Chung. In the previous item, when we discussed the updates to the Civil Service Code, we saw that the government now has higher aspiration and standards for civil servants. In order to retain talent, I think we have to implement the commendation schemes in parallel. Now, I have looked at the figures from the previous paper. For new civil servants under the age of 29, there is a decrease of 1,000 compared year on year. The largest decrease in all age groups. Now, in year 2021 to 22, for civil servants who have resigned under the age of 31, they accounted for 26% of the total number of resignations. Now, in that group, the age group between age 25 and 30 has the highest resignation rate among the total. It shows that the government must do more to keep our young civil servants with us. Now, I think that all the commendation schemes are for awarding civil servants who have been serving for a considerable period of in the government, for example, 3 years or 5 years. It seems that we don't have any commendation schemes for newly joined civil servants. So what about those civil servants who have been working in the government for less than 3 years or still on probation? Would there be a new commendation or an award mechanism to encourage their loyalty? Second question. There is an award for civil servants contributing to the handling of emergencies. Now, under the Civil Service Outstanding Service Award Scheme, there is a category to award civil service teams contributing to the alleviation of catastrophes and so on. But this is a triennium award scheme. Every year, civil servants have to deal with sporadic catastrophe. For example, in the recent months, the new Legislative system has been running into troubles, and frontline civil servants were faced with immense pressure. Now, our frontline civil servants have been very patient in helping the public to address the problems. That is the smart play. They actually contributed to the resolving of this crisis. So for these contributions, are there timely award for these good performers?
Secretary, those below 29 or 30, the number of new recruits or resignation, the number has been high, as reported by the media. It's not the case that civil service jobs are not attractive or there is a lack of recognition. It's not the case at all. Those below 29, the number of new recruits is lower. The university undergraduates, there is very much a trend of them pursuing a further education. Indeed, there are more and more young people who, having got the first degree, would move on to further their education. So the age of civil servants joining is higher. And also resignation for those below the age of 30. I think I covered this point before. 40% of those who resigned are on probation. Now, this is understandable. Maybe they're not suited to the job, or they have developed other interests, or their abilities may fall short of the requirements. So it would be far better to make the adjustment during probation than if they're kept on and experience problems afterwards. So this is only to be expected. It doesn't have any link with whether they get recognized for their work. For those who have less seniority in the commendation or in the civil service, the Secretary for Civil Service Commendation Award Scheme, we do have some awardees who have been working for less than 6 years. Now, for these who have been working for less than 6 years, their performance during the probation period is really good. So we are paying attention to these probationers. Where credit is due, we would certainly give them credit. If the civil servants are performing well, we would have the commendation letter, and this will go into the P file of the civil servant. This will be taken into account when it comes to promotion and posting. Now, if there is any incidents unexpected incidents in which the civil servant rises to the challenge. And we also have the award scheme in 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23. The percentage of civil servants being awarded has been higher. In 2019, in dealing with Typhoon Mangkhut, some civil servants put in really brilliant performance. In 21, 22, 23, we were beset by COVID, and there were civil servants who got awarded. In 2023, we had a team sent to Turkey for emergency rescue, and there were civil servants who got the award as well. So these are awards in recognition of the performance of the civil servants. Mr. So Chang-wei, Chairman. I support the idea of the administration telling a good story of the civil servants. I'm not sure what cases will be fielding in future, but if we can tell a good story of the civil servants, we must cover the contribution of the civil servants during significant events, like the district council election. The government has completed these electoral process, and the organization, the execution, and the implementation. The government has been putting in a lot of efforts, really well-organized efforts, and I think it has everything to do with the full participation of the civil servants. So this is really a success story there. And I hope that the stories that you tell about the civil servants should cover the contribution made by the civil servants in the district council election. That it is the constitutional duty of the government to hold the district council election, and the civil servants will have to take the lead and fulfill the civic responsibilities. So in your program, you should give due recognition to these civil servants for setting such a good example. And this also would motivate other civil servants to do likewise. In these district council elections, the government has discharged the responsibilities and achieved success, and they won a commendation for many quarters. And I think that civil servants who were part of this process should be given due recognition. How to respond to that? Secretary? Yes, DC elections were just over. There are many civil servants who've made contribution. We are considering whether it is necessary, and if so, how we should give the recognition. Now, for the civil servants who do well, we certainly would give the due recognition, like the rescue team that was sent to Turkey for the rescue. We did give recognition under the Chief Executive's Award for exemplary performance. There are civil servants who are toiling really hard behind the scene, and they may not be noticeable to the members of the public. We think likewise we should also cover them in the storytelling, because they have been working so hard, they put in so much effort to make Hong Kong a better place, and we never run out of these materials. For the district council elections, we'll have a we'll think about it. Mr. So, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that you are not considering other civil servants. You alluded to the rescue team. What I'm emphasizing is that the district council elections are really typical. The government is discharging the primary responsibility. Hardly ever did you have the whole civil service taking part. I think you should identify certain cases to show these shining examples to the rest of the civil service. So in future significant events, we should have similar involvement, similar commitment. Thank you. You got a point, Secretary? Yes, we got a point. We'll mull over it. How many more members would like to speak on this subject? All right, I'm going to draw a line there. Last three. I'll extend the meeting by 15 minutes. Mr. Lai Tong Kwok. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Su Chong-wing brought up the district council elections, and what springs to mind is when I cast my ballot, there were uniformed discipline forces there. Now we had the special duty policemen, not just regular policemen there. Now, special duty policemen came about during the Black Cat violence. Because of manpower crunch, these officers were enlisted to play the policing role. In this district council elections, we also had these special duty policemen, and they have also made significant contribution. That we have these special policemen. Are you going to be issuing them with a note in recognition of their contribution? This is not the same as the award system that we are discussing today. But if the government is going to be doing this, it is a gesture of goodwill. Because going forward on significant issues, we may still need to enlist the help of other discipline services to supplement the police manpower. Do you have any idea in mind along those lines? Secretary? Chairman, thank you. With the district council elections, it was the CMAB that was in charge. Civil servants from different grades were involved. The special duty policemen were one of them. And we also have officers selected from different departments. And also, you probably are not aware of this because you are asleep. When the ballots were sent to the counting station, it happened in the middle of the night till the crack of dawn. It wasn't until the end of that that they went home. Also in the control center, we also have other officers manning different posts. They do have their regular duties. We don't have a special team dealing with election. They were assembled to deal with the electoral duties. Now, we're being fair to the colleagues. We do have the reward, the allowance given to the colleagues taking part in this kind of work. Now, would there be any record to be issued to the officers to go into P file? Now, on that particular point, we do have a practice. On that score, I'm not particularly familiar with this, and I can find out about this from the REO, perhaps. Now, even if the REO doesn't use the record, the department has some the record there, and because they need the consent of the departments. So the departments do have the record about the contribution made by individual officers. So when considering this, they certainly would have the record there.
I would like to invite the Secretary to discuss with her team that all civil servants who have helped out that day should receive a letter of thanks to commend them on their extra efforts. Yes, they did receive pay, but that's still extra efforts. I think that would be a boost to the civil service morale. I think the Secretary has heard you. Next, Mr. Dennis Leung. Thank you, Chairman. Declaration of interest. I have family members who are serving civil servants. I was once a temporary lifeguard working for the government. Well, after my tenure in the government, I received a commendation letter from the municipality. So I think there was a culture to commend civil servants, even if they are just part-timers. So I think we have to carry on the torch, which will benefit civil service morale and also recognize public service. I'm not a civil servant now, but whenever I look at that commendation award or certificate, I feel proud serving the public or having served the public. So I think that's the way to go. Now, I hope the Secretary or the Civil Service Bureau can further enhance the Civil Service Commendation Award scheme. We have members in our union who are about to be retired. Over the past years, they have received commendation letters, but that has stopped right before their retirement. I think this is a shame that they didn't receive the final award in their final year of service. They were saddened by this. They have spent so many years in the government, so why don't we give them the recognition they deserve so that they can be proud in front of their families? I think that's worthwhile to do. On civil servants who are union members, I hope the superiors in departments can be more accommodating to these colleagues. They are representing their fellow colleagues. And they are genuinely working for the benefits of their fellow civil servants in terms of improvements of remuneration and working environment. We shouldn't deny them of the award they deserve simply because of their unionist capacity. I'm not blaming the government. I just want to look ahead and encourage civil servants to speak up for themselves and their colleagues. This will also improve the confidence of the public in the civil service. So I hope the Secretary would hear me. Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. The cases mentioned by Mr. Dennis Leung for a colleague who has been receiving commendation award every year, I think that would be a commendation letter issued by the department. but not the Civil Service Outstanding Service Award Scheme, which applies to the entire civil service. Well, every department has their own standards in issuing commendation. Well, concerning the feelings of these colleagues, we will convey them to the heads of departments. Now, concerning unionists, I think in considering whether to award commendation, whether the colleague is a member of the union is not part of the equation. Work performance and union activities are very different things. I personally know many cases who have received commendation because of the good work on top of the work in the unions. But we will remind heads of departments to at least avoid this perception by the public. In reality, in considering whether to issue commendation or not, the capacity as a union member is not part of the consideration. On the other hand, if a civil servant is performing well on top of his contribution to the union work, that would be a favorable consideration as well. Now it is my turn. Of course, it is good to receive an award. For those who have been left out, it doesn't mean that they are doing a poor job. It just means that there are others who are outshining them. That's all. So I think it is good to award good performers and inspire dedication in other colleagues. That is a positive effect. Now, about the long and meritorious service travel award scheme, that is very attractive. It applies to colleagues who have served for 20 years or more continuously, and they are only eligible to the award once in their employment. Now, according to the paper, the ratio of award is 1 award for every 27 offices. Is there room for enhancing the ratio? Are there colleagues who are eligible for the award but fail to get the travel award during their employment because of the lack of quota? Second, let me be blunt. Many award schemes come with a quota. Now, many colleagues have been pressing the government to legislate for the offense against insulting a public officer. It is not an award, but it is critical in upholding the dignity of public servants. So what is the timetable? Thank you, Chairman. Concerning the long and meritorious service travel award scheme, this award scheme goes back a long way. In terms of history, it was a travel award scheme established back in 1956. There was a different requirement in terms of years of service for the awardees. Now, in a more recent context, in the 1980s, the award ratio was 1:50 among the eligible civil servants. Now, in year 1989, it was enhanced to 1:25. Between 1992 and 93, it was amended to 1:33. That is 1 award for every 33 eligible offices. Now, in 1997 and 98, the ratio was enhanced to 1 to 30. In year 2014 and 15, it was further enhanced to 1 to 27. A relaxation of the quota means more resources allocated, so it depends on the resources available. There is a quota because this is a rather significant recognition to years of good service. We don't want to just hand out the award to just anyone. We require the bureaus and departments to select the best from the best. There is a standard and hence the quota. So every colleague being awarded with the travel award is simply the best of the best. On where we should draw a line and how we should set the standard, well, we have to consider the resources available and compare it against the performances delivered by the colleagues. Well, the definition of best of the best is up for debate and it is up for amendments. In terms of offense of insulting a public officer, the relevant bureau has conducted a study on this. Now, we are considering changing relevant work deployments to avoid exposing our civil servants to insults by the public. For example, FEHD frontline officers are now equipped with a live cam, and the result is palpable. Thank you, Secretary. So wherever resources allow, we hope the quota can be enhanced. Thank you very much. So that concludes the second item. The next one, AOB. Any AOB? If not, then this meeting is the last meeting of the panel on public service for this session. I thank the members as well as government officials for contributing to the discourse over the past year. I wish you all a very happy New Year and New Year's Eve. Thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.